Welcome back. It's now time for us to get to the viewpoint. Let's take a look at what's happening in the country. As I earlier said, we are now slowly coming to the end of the year. So that means we want to take stock of state of the nation and just start to recap it slowly by slowly as we come to the final bit of the year 2025. In studio I have Kevin Osido, who is Executive Director, County Governor's Watch, a gentleman who has been with us here. I say he's not new to Jerusalem. Asante sana for coming.
Asante.
Kevin, good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Good to see you.
And you too.
Asante.
And thank you for bringing these wonderful men here.
Who in particular? All of them?
This one.
Oh, Sosion.
All of them, but this one. He's been too lost.
You'll have to tell us why he's wonderful.
Yeah, because there are things I used to tell him that would change many months ago, and he refused to believe.
Like what?
No, we are still just saying hello, good morning. Good morning, Mwalimu.
Good morning, sir.
Karibu.
How are you, sir?
Hey, okay. Is there any change now that you are warned? Are you warned?
No, what changed? Other than what I told him.
Okay.
What I told him is exactly what happened.
Great.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Next to him is Professor Emmanuel Mutisia, also not new to Jerusalem. He is educationist and development expert. Prof, good morning.
Good morning, Victor.
Our neighbors were Kwaji in Machakos.
We're doing well in Mayakos.
Mayakos.
Like my friend called it.
Karibu sana, of course, now.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Asante. And now Wilson Sosion, who is a veteran education, unionist and educator. He's also been with us here throughout the year. Asante sana for coming to the show once again, Mheshimiwa.
Yeah, thank you, Victor,
Karibu.
and good morning.
Karibu sana. And finally, FCPA, Hesman Omolo is a council member of ISPAC. Karibu sana. Bon.
Asante sana.
That's used to be called when you were young.
Yeah, that was my name growing up.
Yeah. Okay. Karibu sana. For me, my late grandma used to call me Victor. Victor. She could not pronounce V. Because of the gap down here. So V would come out at V.
No, in the lower community, V is not a vowel.
Yeah.
It's not. So it's Victor or Victor.
Is this like in other parts of the country, Nairobi is also called Nairobi?
I'm a Nairobi. I'm a Nairobi. Okay. Let's start with the front page of the local dailies. Start with you. Prof, what do you have on the front page? That's the Star. What does it say?
A new bill stops out-of-court settlement for sexual offenses. Offenders negotiate privately with victims' families to avoid trial.
Yeah.
I think the focus here is that most of these cases, around sexual offenses, do not see the light of the day because those involved, talk to the families and settle that out of court by paying something small.
Yeah.
Which is not auguring well with what should be done in our society. I think it's important that we ensure that those ones who face these sexual offenses, both from the demand and supply side, face the force of the law. You know, if you have this offense as a man or as a woman to a young one or even out there against the law, you must face it hard on.
Anybody wants to have a word on that, Mheshimiwa Sosion?
Well, yeah, I think this is very straight and very clear. But you cannot negotiate crime outside the corridors of justice. Let sexual offense cases be adjudicated fully in the corridors of justice, because these out-of-court settlements is actually compromising and giving away the rights of victims. So sexual offenses must be criminalized and severely punished as provided by the law. I think that is straightforward.
Yeah. We're talking about that, and many girls, of course, underage young girls are facing sexual offenses across the country. Hesbon, perhaps you can also chime on that?
Yeah, I think I agree with that bill. The issue of sexual offenses must remain in the space of criminal offense.
Yeah.
And we shouldn't have back-end engagement where perpetrators of sexual violence are able to get away with it. And therefore, sexual offenses should consistently be treated as criminal offenses and the victims should be given justice, and that justice is not about back-end agreements. I think that could still be done as part of restorative justice, but criminal offenses must be prosecuted and the strongest punishment possible meted.
Great. What do you have on the front page of the Standard? Perhaps you can also give a word on that as you give us the front page of the Standard newspaper.
Yeah, my word is, of course, I also agree with the bill, the proposal. And my recommendation is that we enhance community awareness so that contrary to word on the streets that Kenya has very good laws, quite progressive and conscious about our contexts, but that the community members also need to understand those laws, and particularly these progressive ones like the one on sexual offenses, so that even in very adversely affected populations, we know certain parts of this country where a lot of out-of-court settlement happens, particularly on sexual offenses and even FGM, etc., that there would be a lot of community awareness so that they understand the law and are able also to not only report, but that when cases are reported, effective feedback is also given to the aggrieved individuals and victims and also the families.
Yeah.
So on the front page of the Standard, killing the Mara. And so this is a story that is talking about the Masai Mara, which is undisputedly Kenya's crown jewel and is facing its most serious assault in decades. So there is a surge of land grabs, poisoned wildlife, blocked migration corridors, and bitter ownership battles that are slowly choking this global tourism magnet. They are saying that predators are being killed, habitats carved up, and communities pushed into violent protests as powerful individuals move to seize chunks of land at the heart of the reserve, with court rulings handling control of prime territory to private interests and toxic chemicals wiping out lions and hyenas, and the future of the Mara hangs in the balance. And they've given some quite interesting statistics here around the value of the endangered Mara, that Narok County, for example, collects as park fees. In the financial year 2023, it collected, according to the Controller of Budget reports, 4.3 billion shillings. And this contributed to 91.3% of the total revenue collected by the county government. And that there are about 850 to 900 in the larger Mara ecosystem, total of lion population, 850 to 900. And that this is, it informs Africa's famous ecotourism in terms of visibility and also coalition behavior. And lastly, they are saying that as of December 2017, the audit on tourism facilities revealed over 50% of the facilities are built within 30 meters on riparian reserve, which of course takes about 31% of the tourist facilities in the country.
That report is coming out when Kenya is celebrating the Tourism Week. And again, the report is also going to paint a very grim picture. When it comes to tourism in this country, we all know that tourism is one of the key revenue earners. And when it comes to more so even for the county government of Narok and nationally speaking, but then that's also paints a very grim picture when it comes to conservation of our environment and the Masai Mara ecosystem. A lot has been spoken about poaching, and the president also gave a very good move 2 days ago in Savo to introduce, some rare species of wild animals in that conservancy. But then now it also calls for a collective responsibility to ensure that we don't interfere with Masai Mara. On the front page of the Daily Nation, gentlemen, I'll come back to you later on. Ruto ministers to lead 2027 poll campaigns. That is on the front page of the Daily Nation. Buoyed by recent victory in 7 parliamentary by-elections, President William Ruto has tasked cabinet secretaries to take charge of his re-election campaigns in their respective regions, in a move that is likely to wrong-foot the opposition. Now, the Daily Nation says that in 2017, the late former Prime Minister also raised concern over ministers taking charge of the campaigns, and also critics, including that's Raila Odinga in 2017, petition and argued that CSS as public officers are barred under the Constitution, the principles, the Political Parties Act, the Public Officer Ethics Act, and also the Election Offences Act from participating in parliamentary or in any political activities. But that is what we saw. I mean, it's not news. We all saw what happened during the by-elections. Let me start with you, Hesbon. Again, on this front page, this is basically what's likely to happen, because most of these cabinet secretaries were politicians before they got into these positions. Go ahead.
I think the recent by-election is a pointer to what we expect in 2027, and therefore we need to take lessons. There are clearly worrying trends around violence that we should not allow to creep in, and therefore law enforcement agencies must work very, very strongly to ensure that is done. IEBC, to a very large extent, has passed its first test, having been reconstituted to have delivered the results. I know there are cries from certain sectors or areas where people felt they didn't get the results they wanted. But there's just so much IEBC can do. Issues of violence requires collective involvement of all the actors within the space. But that aside, largely the opposition, so to speak, coalition, left the election wounded, where they thought they would get victory. In Beira, they didn't succeed. In Western, Malava, again, they didn't succeed. If you go to the coast, that has turned out to be a broad-based outcome, same to most of the areas. So I see a challenge for the opposition if they really want to take on the broad-based side led by the president. They have their work cut out. But having said that, allow me also to say that the period between now and 2027, the cabinet secretaries naturally will be the faces of the president in the regions they come from. So they will most likely be leading the campaigns.
That paints a very thin line between executing the executive mandate and also campaigning. A very thin line, perhaps to someone who might not be in a position to distinguish the two. It will just come to pass.
It's a very thin line, and it will take a lot of being what we are as a country. I think the cabinet secretaries walk a very thin line. On one end, they are espousing the government policies and sharing what the presidency has done, because they also have a mandate to ensure that they disseminate information that is happening, besides helping the president with advice and also helping execute the government programs. That is the reality. So it's a thin line, but they also need to ensure they walk it well. The truth also is we are politics, you know how it comes. It's very difficult unless there's legislation that stops it. I don't see that happening.
It's a revolving conveyor belt.
It's revolving in a way that most likely they will be involved. Let's just face it, they'll be involved.
But that goes against the laws that are completely spelled out, Mheshimiwa Sossion.
Yes, even before I chime to that, I think the issue of conservation is critical, is extremely critical to this country. Now that the theme of the next celebration of Jamhuri is on tourism and conservation, I think it's important we give it more weight and dive into it much more. The threats to the Mara are real, and these are issues that must be addressed, particularly the rangers, the family rangers around the Mara. They must conform to the scientific protocol of conservation, and we must be able to, if we want to promote tourism, we must preserve the species that we have in the Mara and the entire Mara ecosystem, up to and including the rivers and the sources. That means we must also conserve the Mau. We must conserve everywhere. We must conserve the species that we have, which is our heritage within this country. So I believe this is a good headline from the Standard. Rarely do we see meaningful headlines from the Standard, but I think today we have a good one that really points out on specific issues. Coming to the ministers leading the political agenda of the president, I think it's right for the ministers because they are appointed as heads of the ministries who espouses the policies and direction and leadership of the respective ministries and the general agenda of government. There is nothing absolutely wrong with them engaging with the people directly because they will not be talking politics. They will be talking agenda of the government, the delivery program, the delivery plan, where we have reached the milestones and what else needs to be done. I think that is a position. And by outlining such, I think they'll be performing their duties. I think sometimes in this country we read too much and we think there are some people who should never do anything at all and then we call it politics. Yeah. I think that is wrong. Let the ministers enjoy their democratic right of engaging the people wherever they are across the country. I've accompanied quite a number of them to their respective activities, including Honorable Ruku, because a minister is not supposed to be confined in an office chamber in Nairobi. A minister is supposed to engage the people who he represents by virtue of them being appointed by the president. And there are many things that ministers do collectively. You see, when you look at the protocols of cabinet, decisions are made that cover all ministries and all ministers decide together. So there is that collective responsibility. And from the basis of that collective responsibility, even a minister for education can outline programs of other ministries wherever he goes across the country. So what I see is making the ministers more proactive in driving the government agenda as we move towards 2027. Every election is about an agenda.
You said you accompanied CS Ruku?
I've accompanied many of them.
Okay,
One of them is even
his involvement in the Mbere by-election was just okay?
Perfectly okay, 100%. And no apology to offer to anyone. Because
does it contravene any?
Ruku,
does it contravene any law outlined?
It doesn't. It doesn't, and I don't think we are a court of law to interpret.
No, we are
that
not.
Was done.
No, we are not.
But we cannot be simplistic. Ruku is a former MP of Mbere North, and he has a lot of attachment with the people. And while visiting the people of Mbere North, we were able to outline effectively the government agenda, the pillars of this administration, the development pillars, the vision of 2055 of moving this country to the first world. And you see, Victor, moving Kenya to the first world is not about roads and everything and development program to be admired. It is about getting every Kenyan out of poverty.
Let's also get
it's about getting every Kenyan out of poverty.
Okay.
And that is a good vision. It's a master plan.
Go ahead.
No, I think we need to look at a number of factors, to define the role of cabinet secretaries in this country. Number one, cabinet secretaries are political appointees. And their work is just that. Yeah. To ensure that they link development with politics. Because in Kenya, there's a very thin line between politics and development. They drive the policies in their respective ministries that are supposed to help in implementing the agenda that the president of Kenya drives. And it's important to note that with the three arms of government, the executive member number 001 is the president of Kenya, followed by the deputy president, but also the cabinet secretaries. And because these CSs or cabinet secretaries are not career civil servants, they are appointed by the president for a period of time to assist the president in achieving the agenda that he has set for the people of this country. And therefore, them being involved in political processes is perfectly okay. And as Oshan said, I don't think there is any law that says otherwise against this. If they are career civil servants, Other career civil servants are supposed to be apolitical, and that is properly defined. But when it comes to political appointees, within the period that they work with the president on that seat, it is important that they support the president both in development and in politics. So what we've seen over the last several weeks during the by-elections, that was perfectly okay, and we saw them going out there, and they should do that more, because the president of this country, as I said, who is the lead or the leader of the executive wing of the government, is a politician. And that is why we need to put, and I think it's important. I think for us it is important that we do not delve too much into things just to fit a certain narrative within what people against the government are driving to. It is important that we align ourselves with issues that affect Kenyans. And as the president has put it very clearly, for us to get to that level, although I've seen people talking about politics, that we should not be thinking about the Singapore way or the Singapore dream, which is something that should be actually outlined in the next vision, which should be the vision beyond 2030, that we want to become a first world country. For us to get there, we need leaders who understand the needs and the demands of our people. But more importantly, we need leaders who understand the link between politics and development. And of course, to ensure that whatever we drive as a country and as leaders feeds into that dream of getting us to that level. And essentially, things that we've seen discussed in various platforms is that for us to get to that level, for us to get our people to the level of a first world country, we need to put proper governance structures. And those governance structures will include, but not limited to, getting the right team to work with the president to ensure that we articulate the issues that are required to drive or to push our development to the next level.
Okay. Kevin, as you take us to a break, this really includes a lot of crafting when forming a cabinet.
Yeah, precisely. And, this is why it is good to sit with wonderful men and level-headed gentlemen. But I beg to disagree on a few things. That one, the kind of constitution that we currently have did not envision that cabinet secretaries are supposed to be politicians. So cabinet secretaries are not supposed to be politicians. And if you look at part of the kind of leadership context that we operate in, unfortunately, we still have that push for the president to appoint political people into the cabinet. But the law does not require that cabinet secretaries are politicians. And that is why we no longer have MPs who are cabinet secretaries. There is a very clear division, so that if the president likes that Bon here would be a cabinet secretary who is a governor for, say, Homa Bay, for example, then he has to resign from his position as, that particular space, as an example. And unfortunately, the kind of space that we enjoy as a people demands that sometimes the presidency or His Excellency the President looks for those political images, political individuals to sit in the cabinet. And I think part of that is a lesson that we are learning, that politicians probably communicate effectively with the populace as opposed to any other infrastructural establishments that could be in place. And I think that His Excellency the President has also been very clear around some of the challenges that he's facing with communication of what government policies and the beautiful programs that his government could be doing to the people. And so the assumption that having a few politicians in cabinet would be very instrumental in helping him to create that awareness and also to cement, part of what the government is doing, I think that is playing well for Kenya Kwanza government, and we have also seen it even with other governments, despite, of course, the requirement that cabinet secretaries are not supposed to be politicians. Number two.
We take a quick break. It's 7:30.
Then we can do number two.
Exactly. I'll come back to that. All right. Apologies for that. All right. Let's take a break. We'll be right back with more. Stay with us. All right. right, welcome back. If you're just joining us, Wilson Sosion, who is a veteran unionist and educator, is in studio. Kevin Osido, Executive Director, County Governor's Watch, also in studio. FCPA, Hesbon Omolo, Council Member of East Park, and finally Professor Emmanuel Mutisia, Educationist and Development Expert, all the four gentlemen in studio. Kevin Osido, number 2.
Yeah, number 2, I was just, more or less, I wanted to make an addition to what has been said,
yes.
that there is a good law in this country that we call the Electoral Offences Act. And that act bars public officers and civil servants from engaging in politics. Of course, as we already have understood, it's difficult to have a scenario where CSS, who are really political individuals, would therefore be out of politics and campaigning at that net. But I think it should be understood that good manners and adherence to the rule of law requires that when IEBC has this campaign period, let everyone who has interests in that particular process adhere to that particular offense, rather to the law that therefore bars or ensures that they are not involved.
Yeah.
And I think that part of the spirit would emanate from the presidency and right from the president himself, so that yes, we can have CSS out there, we can have all these chief officers even at the county level, including even governors, because this is not just about cabinet secretaries. So that when it is during those X number of days for the campaigns, if we want to create awareness on government policy and ensure that the government programs are understood, let us do that. And I think the president has tried to exercise good manners insofar as having town hall meetings, which then are very clear around what is the agenda. If it is about helping people understand the number of cubic liters that have been put for water in a certain area, let it be so, as opposed to trying to use other language or propaganda in terms of even goodies, to persuade people, because the law actually bars, and it is very clear when you look at, I think it's Section 81 of the Electoral Offences Act, some of the things that therefore are not expected in the campaign. And as Hesbon said earlier on, I think they are very, is a bad trend that we are seeing towards 2027. And if we do not do things right today, it's going to compromise the electoral integrity, which, as much as, of course, IEBC, newly formed, has done very well in terms of the technical aspects. We didn't have delays, we didn't have, hitches with BVR kits, etc. But I think measuring the electoral integrity of the elections using the bar set by the by-elections, there are lots of work. There's a lot of work that IEBC has to do so that the electoral integrity issues around transparency and accountability, because Article 86 of the Constitution actually expects that electoral system must have certain indicators. And so to be able to motivate people, look at the turnout, for example, of the by-elections, despite all the factors that would make the turnout to be very low, but we don't want to be talking about low turnouts in 2027. So the IEBC has to work on a number of issues that therefore messed up or affected the electoral integrity of the by-elections, moving towards 2027 to therefore inform an electoral system that Kenyans would be very proud of, and one that IEBC will come and say, yes, we said that we are going to deliver, and we have delivered this election in a manner that is expected.
This question goes to all of you. Then it means that when you talk about the electoral conduct and codes of ethics, then we also have the aspect of governance principle. Some of the cabinet secretaries are politicians, and you'll find that during the electoral cycle, you'd find them going back to their, to their regions, either to vie for different political seats. So then it means that, yes, you are articulating the executive manifesto and policies. Then you also have a role to play, because you never know what lies ahead of you. Let me start with you, Sosion.
Trying to put an electric fence between the operation of cabinet secretaries and interacting with the public by applying such a rule would be wrong. First of all, our constitution grants every citizen political right under Article 38.
Yeah.
And it is very difficult to draw a boundary where ministers are engaging the public, whether you can classify such as politics or not, or development agenda. You look at our pillars, the Vision 2030 political pillar even talks about the country must drive issue-based politics And you look at the architecture of governance, you know, those who don't want a sitting president to succeed will try to limit the operations of cabinet ministers, which I think is wrong. And it's common practice in all jurisdictions, all democracies. Even when you go to the US, the secretaries of the cabinet secretaries also, they operate in more or less similar manner. There is nothing wrong with meeting people as far as possible and outlining agenda and activities of government within the political ecosystem of government. The president cannot do that all the time. The ministers have to do it. The CSS have to do it. It is only where the constitution framers actually envisage that we need ministers who are apolitical, who don't do politics, they only sit in, which is not possible. You know, all of us operate politically, even professionals where you are. You're also pushing an agenda, you're also doing, it's politics. It's the art of influence. You want to influence people to believe in the ideas that you have. Now, it is also unconstitutional to limit somebody from communicating to the people what ought to be done. I think the only thing that ought to happen is that, and it has been corrected, is that once you are appointed a minister, you cannot sit in parliament. That is it.
Okay.
But it doesn't mean if you are appointed a minister, you cannot communicate with the public as far as possible. We've seen you people, you invite ministers to the show, you invite PSS to the show, and then they are communicating with the public. What would be fundamentally wrong if they also move down and talk with the people?
Next to you, sociologist.
They also have a right.
Hezbollah wants to say something.
They also have a right.
Just before you continue.
They also have a right.
Just before you continue, what do you want to say, Hezbollah?
I think I wanted just to emphasize that, one,
Yes.
The law says a cabinet minister or cabinet secretary should not be holding a political office.
Correct.
In a party. It is silent on being a member of a party. That is where there are certain segments of our constitution that are not speaking to each other. I think Article 99 and 77, there's a bit of a lacuna there, especially on how that is treated. Of course, there's still values that you expect of a cabinet secretary, neutrality, all these things, but the reality around how then you would even define your neutrality. If I'm speaking something that is factual, in my conversation, conveying actual government activity that is factual.
Yeah.
How would then that be exposed to tenets of neutrality? And if I'm speaking it in the context or in a space where probably there is a by-election, of course, when there's a by-election, the season is different. Unlike all the other times that you carry out your responsibility. But ultimately, the cabinet secretary should be seen to be neutral and serving everyone. And of course, in the course of that service, these are people who must engage with the people. And that's why you need people who can be able to relate with the populace. And that's why the president and the leadership must be keen to pick people who not only speak to policies and guide government agenda when they sit in the cabinet, but when they go out there, they must articulate those issues clearly to the people. And that's why you would find that some technocrats would struggle. They would be very good in the boardroom when you sit in the cabinet. But now when they go out there to explain these things to the people, there's a disconnect because you also have to communicate the government agenda to the people. So it's a very thin line, and the way our constitution is constructed, I would struggle to fault the cabinet secretaries on what they engage in. Maybe at a lower level for the PSS, it could be a little bit different.
Okay. I cut you short.
Yes, you cut me short, and that is useful, enriching information. Who appoints the cabinet? The president. How is the president guided in appointing the cabinet? He's given a free hand to choose those he think are the best. The laws only prohibits a cabinet secretary holding two offices. You cannot be a member of parliament and be a cabinet at the same time. It doesn't stop a cabinet secretary from exercising political rights where necessary. And I say where necessary, because the art of communicating to the people and organizing people is also a political process. and so, and rightly as he has stated, the law also talks of you resign from a party position. But it doesn't say you resign as a member of the party. The president is sponsored by a political party.
Yeah.
And he will very likely, the law was very clear. It was known the president will pick ministers likely from the members of his political party. When John Badi, the chairman of ODM, was appointed cabinet secretary treasurer, he had to resign as
ODM,
a chairman ODM.
Yes.
But not necessarily
As a member.
as a member of ODM. He would retain that right within the provisions of Article 38 of the Constitution. The same case with Joe. He was deputy party leader, but he had to resign, but not necessarily as a member of ODM. That political right is retained, and I think we've elevated our constitutional and legal architecture of the ministries so that they operate differently. But that does not mean you abdicate your leadership responsibility.
Okay.
And that leadership is political in nature. So the question that we should be asking is, how effective are the cabinet secretaries in their roles in delivering while using their political skills where necessary, while using their communication skills where necessary, while using their expert skills where necessary?
Can we answer all that question? That's a very good
That's a question we should be asking. But not saying don't go and talk to the people.
No, I think I do support.
That's a good question.
I'm in support of submissions by my fellow panelists here. I think it's important to go back to where we started this conversation. And I think it also goes back to what Soshona said and Esbon, that the law is very clear. But the law is also very complex because there are provisions of the constitutions, of our constitution, that does not provide the clarity that we require in providing guidance to some of the things that we are raising on this table. One of the core roles of cabinet secretaries in this country is policy formulation. And if you go back to what a policy is an outcome or an output of a political process. And therefore, it is important for them to understand the political process, for them to formulate policies that will sort of guide in the implementation of a manifesto, if you go back to the campaign period, but an agenda, like the better agenda that the President of Kenya has. And therefore, for them to go out there and articulate the policies that their respective ministries have set up to ensure that they meet or they implement the agenda of the government is something that should not be questioned by anyone. And number two, it is also important to understand that, as you said, I think we do agree, all of us, that you're not supposed to hold a political office, and you're also not supposed to be, to be an appointed political figure in this country. That is clear, but it does not stop you, stop the president from appointing someone who has a political experience. Because then when you go back to all that, you realize that all Kenyans are political. We are all very political. It's just the degree that differs. So Sean is more political than me because I'm a classroom politician, and he's more of a ground politician. And so I think these are things that we need to
but we are both politicians.
And we are both politicians at the same time. Anyway, so that should not be a question that we need to raise. Against the cabinet secretaries, preparing or supporting the president, or providing that kind of support in preparation for 2027. Okay. The last point, and which to me is very critical, is what he has concluded with. We need to look at a cabinet secretary around their capacity to deliver in their respective portfolio, and their capacity to communicate their achievements. Because I think one of the biggest challenges that we face today is that it takes the president to go to the ground, to go and explain what his government is doing. Yet he has all these people who have been given all this, this space to perform, to deliver, but also go to the ground to tell Kenyans that, a manifesto said this, the president committed this, the agenda that we have for you is this, and we have done the following. We have not done this because of the following reasons. We'll be doing this within this period of time. Now, it has taken the president to go down to Ukambani to come and tell us that, you know, we have this road that is coming from this point to this point. We have not been able to do it because of the following reasons. That is the work of a cabinet secretary, to ensure that that is properly articulated and Kenyans know exactly where we are. And therefore, moving forward, I think we need to ask that question, very loudly, on what the CSs are doing, what they have, how they are communicating the same to the people, and how we as Kenyans, are evaluating their performance in their various portfolios.
Don't you think some of them are meant for scoring political scores? When you want to articulate some issues, you leave them for certain people. Kevin?
Victor, I think we are overstretching the question that you asked, because the issue was cabinet secretaries engaging in campaigns during the by-elections. And I think that you gave an example of the CS Ruku. And so nobody is saying that it is not right for CSS to engage in conversations with the people. The Electoral Offences Act bars state officers and public servants from engaging in active campaigns. And this country has moved forward to even have a number of days, I think it's 60 days, for campaigns, for which no public officer, no civil servant is expected to be campaigning. But between now and the time of campaigns, CSS are free to move everywhere, engage, talk. And I think I like what President William Ruto has done, because, we have been in some quarters even asking him, why are you not engaging with the formerly known provincial administration? As much as it is not constitutional, but we saw chiefs now at State House. We saw assistant county commissioners with the CS, Murkomen, Dr. Raymond Omolo, and the president, building their capacity to go out there and engage citizens in what government is doing. That is very progressive, because community health promoters, for example, will not work very effectively without their local chiefs and the county commissioners, even the regional commissioners, etc.
Yeah.
So that is fit. Let it move on, let it proceed. But when there are by-elections, when we have elections happening, the Electoral Offences Act, Article 81 of the Constitution, and the Electoral Offences Act, Article 86, it bars public officers, state officers, including cabinet secretaries, from engaging in active campaigns. So between now and when campaigns are called, they can do everything they want to do. And the president has decried the lack of proper capacity for people that he has entrusted to be able to communicate government policies and programs and the progress that the government has been able to make.
Yeah.
In one platform like this one, I was even asking, these divisions around broad-based government, people who are for BBG and those who are not for BBG, can somebody just tell us what are these good things, for example, that BBG has done for Nyanza region, where there is a lot of division, whether to support or not, ahead of 2027. And 4 days after that, somebody whom I believe is a state officer sent me a PDF document of about 74 pages that clearly indicates what the president said when he went to Yoma, where I come from, in basically Siaya County, what he wanted to do, the state of what he said would be done, the progress, and what is left, and the percentage. And you see, now that is a very good document. It's a good communication. And because I don't work for government, I'm not in government, it's not my business to now go around printing and, photocopying that document and sharing with people in my ward. But the assistant county commissioner, the county commissioner of the area, Madam Flora Moroa, can be capacitated, the regional commissioner for Nyanza, with that kind of very good information, so that when chiefs are holding their barazas, they can share that as, AOB from the office of the president, or a dispatch from the office of the president or the office of the PS or CS to, inform citizens.
Yeah.
But when it comes to elections, you should not tell people, for example, that musipopigia candidate wetu hamutapata hii pesa, musipofanya hivi maji haitaletwa. That is what the law bars. And I remember a Supreme Court petition, Raila Odinga versus others, 2017. That is part of what the Supreme Court judges used, because the parties then even provided pictures of government GK vehicles in political rallies, and that is what the court used to nullify that election and sent Kenyans into a second election. So in terms of strengthening our good laws, I think it is just good political manners that when the law says when we have campaigns, which are political campaigns, cabinet secretaries are not supposed to, then we need to also begin to imbibe in that good spirit, so that even Kenyans, those who want to run for office, do not feel disenfranchised,
Yes.
that I'm running against somebody who is probably being heavily supported or politically
Okay,
capacitated.
gentlemen,
I think a quick definition before, just to add on to what he said. And I think that goes back to what Sosiana said. I do agree with Kevin. But I think we need to go back to the definition of a state officer. And I mean, a state officer or a public officer. And I think he even sort of shared something that is very interesting. When you look at a public officer, it almost includes everybody, including the members of parliament, including all those civil servants. So then this means that at the end of the day, if you have a by-election, nobody is supposed to go on the ground to campaign. So if a member of parliament is a public officer, if a county governor and an MCA is a public officer, then it says that if we have a by-election in my constituency down there in Makueni, then nobody in that category is supposed to go on the ground and campaign within that period of time. Is that practical, or is it really realistic? Or is it something that we need to really look at and say that, no, let us now adjust this, because this is not workable in the current Kenya that we are living in today?
Yes,
In fact, to sum up all what he's saying, is that all state officers are public officers, but not all public officers are state officers. So basically, that is how it is.
Okay. What
So
does the Constitution
let
say?
me just read Article 260J actually gives the definitions, and if you look at, for example, the distinction comes in where there is money from consolidated fund, and it says that state officer or any person other than a state officer who holds a public office. Then it is defining what a public office is. It means an office in the national government, a county government, or the public service, if the remuneration and benefits of the office are payable directly from the consolidated fund or directly out of money provided by Parliament. Then it has also defined what public service is to mean the collectivity of all individuals other than state officers performing a function within a state organ.
So state officers are constitutional office holders.
Yes.
Public officers are anybody employed in the public service.
Yeah.
Both national or local or
Correct.
government.
Correct.
Gentlemen, 5 minutes to go. What a year. Then it means that this is going to be our last show with you, because we cannot do it again next week. What a year. Hesbon.
Yeah, it's been a year that has been full of ups and downs. This is the year we lost Prime Minister Raila Odinga. So that has been a very low point in the year. But this has also been a year of renewal. Looking at the first 3 years of this Kenya Kwanza regime, this has been the most stable of the years of this regime compared to the previous years, because of the level of unrest we've had. So for year in 2022-23, then we had all those tax-related protests. Yes, we had those anniversaries, but this has been a good year. And I think there has been quite a lot of progress in many areas. Looking forward to 2026 being a year where some of these gains will take off. I'm particularly impressed with the thought around having a sovereign wealth fund and the infrastructure fund that will take away heavy national development agenda away from our budget, so that we cushion our already overburdened public debt space. That is a space where we will be looking forward to enabling legislation to actualize the use of the funds being raised from the sale of part of Safaricom shares. Maybe if time would have allowed, we would have discussed that a little bit, but I think we are generally headed in the right direction. If you can continue in that momentum, the central bank lowered further the CBR rate, which means the uptake of credit in the private sector has picked up. These are signs that the economy is starting to pick up, but also the second half of this year has registered very low rainfall, and therefore we need to watch out the space of
I want
resilience.
to ask a common mwananchi kind of question. What does it feel in Wanjiku's pocket, from your point of view?
I think Wanjiku is overburdened, that is no doubt, and for good or justifiable reasons.
Yes.
Why is Wanjiku overburdened? Because we have taken money from Wanjiku, especially the employee, to safeguard their future by putting over 300 billion in the last 1.5 to 2 years into the Social Security Fund to secure their future. So that's a good thing. It's a saving. Only that ninja leo, furaha kesho. The other bit of it is that there is a massive infrastructure around affordable housing that should be able to spur growth in the economy and also decent living spaces. We have now better healthcare through SHA, much as there's still a bit of teething challenges. So as Wanjiku gets overburdened with all these spaces, it is our legitimate expectation that some of these social goods that have to be provided by government, including the spaces of healthcare and education, then can be taken up more by government to lessen the burden around it. But I think it's for a moment. They say no pain, no gain. I think this pain should be temporal. As we move forward and as we stabilize even the affordable housing fund over time, that it can be stable, then at some point we can think about removing the deduction, so that then the fund is self-sustaining going into the future.
This is the last question I want to ask you. Then what does it mean for the year 2026? Because it means 2026 will be very fast moving into the election. From East Park, from your experience and from your point of expertise, what are we looking at in terms of inflation?
Inflation is likely to go up as we head towards the election.
Yeah.
So if there are critical government projects that need to be kicked on, we have a very small window to get them going. Otherwise, from June, the budget after that, I think there'll be more politics as we head into the next election.
Thank you. Mheshimiwa Sosion, what a year. We've been here with you throughout.
This has been the most intensive year in terms of transformative agenda of the country. Very intensive indeed, because there are measurable indicators and there's a lot of conversation of what it means. How is that going to translate to the benefits of the citizens? It's a process, as has been stated. You know, when you build a house, it is not an event. It is a process. You do the foundation, you raise the walls, you raise the roof, you do the finishing. So we are in the process of building our republic. And definitely, looking at the attention that Kenya has received internationally, even from the US, then is a strong indicator that we are on the right track. And we have a president who is very ambitious with urgency to deliver, and he has communicated very clearly to Kenyans and the world that Kenya must move to the first world, and the strategic objectives and rules of doing that are falling in place properly. And what I admire most, Victor, and that is going to alleviate the burden of the household, when you invest in universal health coverage, where households will not need to pay any money for treatment, then you have lessened the burden of cost on health. You've removed it from the household. And I think the Ministry of Health, you are talking about politicians. When I look at Piers Oluga, he was the Secretary General of KMPDU and is doing very well with the political capacity in that ministry, and come together with Duale. And they've been able to deliver that agenda properly and well. Yeah. And it is now, the people are now talking, those who are against it are saying now the things that are not working in UHC or SHA are A, B, C, D. And all this is a process. We are in the 14th month of rollout of UHC, and I think the pair, that ministry, are doing fantastically well. When you look at housing, many people didn't know that there were over 170 construction sites across the country to deliver houses. And we have seen poor Kenyans move from slums, the dingy buildings, to decent buildings. That is the beginning. Eventually, all Kenyans will move to decent housing in the long run. To me, if I look at those two state departments, those two ministries alone, and in the housing, Ellis Wahome, you know, was a member of parliament for Kandara and is doing very well in that ministry. And he is an experienced person in that space. So to me, I think the year has been good without going around individuals. Those are the two ministries to me, the two ministries that deal with two key pillars, and there are many other pillars. And the president's strategy of coming up with an infrastructure fund and selling parastotals so that we create more resources is a good thing. And when I was in Malaysia in 2007, the lesson I learned is that Malaysia did not rely on their tax budgets to finance their programs. They partnered with the private sector and mobilized resources. And every ministry has a strategic plan, and it is a must deliver. Malaysia did not borrow from the World Bank. And what we are doing as a country is exactly what those countries did. And when the president comes up with an structure fund, so that the infrastructure that could have taken 70 years with the ordinary budgetary process can be done in under 10 years, I think it's a good thing. Let's have more decent roads, good highways, rail transport, water infrastructure, power infrastructure. 3,000 megawatts is not enough for Kenya. We need over 10,000 megawatts so that we can support manufacturing and other places. So to me, for the first time, 2025 was a year of serious thinking and serious action with good indicators of transformation. I believe that will go on in 2026. It should go on in 2027. Despite election, the transformation agendas and programs must not stop. And it must grow into the next
come to you, Prof.
Yeah, I was forgetting something very important. That in the last 2 years, Kenya's national savings has moved from 12% to 14%. So critically, national savings. And that is the backbone through which we are going to get this county out of economic mess, so that our development agenda will be funded from our own savings. We talk about countries that have borrowed up to 200%, like Japan, but that borrowing is internal. So we cannot grow as a country if our saving culture is poor. And I think that is one transformative baseline that is going to set us forward. That is why when we talk about Rironi Mau Summit Road, the confidence of the government going that direction is because they know they bring in that investor, but they're going to partner with our social security fund because they have the capacity to be able to be part of that journey.
Great. I was about to talk about the Mau Summit.
You know, I like, I'm in full support with what Esbon and Soshon have shared with us. It is important to say that this was the year. When now as a country we have taken off. I think when you look back 2 years, 3 years since COVID-19, you realize that we've been facing all these challenges, not just economic-wise, but politically, social-wise, and so on and so forth. And the macro indicators, not just economic, but macro in all the sectors that have been shared here, it's exactly what is going to take Kenya to that level. And I like what Esban has said at the end. If we are not able to save, then we'll always rely on donor money, expensive loans from the World Bank and development banks out there. And that is what has brought African countries backwards. We must invest as Kenyans in the development that we want to see. When you talk about Singapore, Singapore is funding their development. Why? Because their savings down there is very high, and they are able to borrow domestically, because it's cheaper to borrow from your own people. I'm just going to mention very quickly, in addition to the savings and the infrastructure fund, which I think is the right way to go, if we are to look at the ICT sort of sector, which is critical in moving Kenya to a knowledge-based economy. We see what the ICT ministry has done, the services that they have put out there, the backbone sort of fiber optic that they have laid, the last mile. This is going to be the foundation of where the country is going to be moving forward. And a few weeks ago I was in Korea, and they were talking about data centers for artificial intelligence, in which the Ministry of ICT and Digital Economy has just approved our AI strategic plan, which will take us up to 2033. And Koreans, just like the Chinese and the Americans, are saying that no, AI is going to form the foundation of the future economies that will drive the world to a better level. Now, for that to happen, the infrastructure fund, the sovereign wealth fund, and the savings that we're talking about will be critical. Why? Because of the three areas that the president has talked about. One of them is the road network. You cannot drive this country to Singapore, the Singapore way, if we do not have roads. If when Esbon goes down in Siaya, all the roads there are, dusty and so on and so forth. We cannot drive artificial intelligence or even ICT, the ICT sector in this country to compete with the best in the world if we do not have energy. If the only energy that we have is 2,500 megawatts, yet one data center for AI, we require at least 1,000 megawatts. And so when we look at what the president is doing and what the government is doing, we are very optimistic that if we move, we take that direction this year, next year, 2027, even 2032, Kenya is going to get to the level that we would like it to see and also compete with the best in the world.
Thank you. Thank you. That's a very good point. Kevin,
I think
you have 2 minutes to do this.
Yeah, my colleagues have largely made comments on a number of things I would have also liked to say, but so therefore I agree with them. And the bottom line is a better plan. I mean, bottom economic transformation agenda of President William Ruto. And I think that from the 5 major indicators of the plan, the government has tried to do what is possible to be able to ensure that that those indicators are met. And I think that one of those, the easier to touch was a noise that we saw last year from the finance bill as opposed to 2025, when it was a smooth sailing, of course, despite teachers here and there. And some of the good lessons I believe that the government learned was to engage people. And so we saw the CS Mbadi, for example, being out there in town halls, in communities, engaging with citizens and even officers from Treasury. And that's similar to what we also see in county governments, where, of course, the finance bill also many times brings issues. So, because devolution is really the core of my interest. So let me just talk about what we saw happening from a positive angle. And that in 2025-2026 fiscal year, the government tried to be able to deal with the noise that normally emanates from the governors and National Treasury. We also saw the court giving a very positive green light for roads and maintenance levy. And sometimes we do not have to go to court. I am very confident about the institutions that we have to be able to address some of these issues. Of course, the court being part of it. But out of the positive aspect was that 67.7 billion, I think, was given to county governments. A lot of work, Victor, that needs to be done from an institutional perspective. And so therefore, looking forward to 2026, full devolution of functions. This has been one of the biggest talks. Even in 2025, we have seen a lot of meetings happening between national government, IGRTC, COG, among others, stakeholders, the deputy president being at the forefront. But we can't easily touch, what is emanating from these good meetings. So moving forward, we want to be able to touch these functions at the counties. And I think for me, the last one is, on a sad note, was the loss of the former Prime Minister Raila Amolo Odinga. Good lessons for our political infrastructure, but much more fundamentally, the loss of my good friend, Festus Amimo, a few weeks ago. Something that is a big shock. And we hope that God, in his mercies and spirit, will find a safe space for Amimo. Absolutely. A very charismatic media leader, a very astute journalist. Interestingly, 25th November, he hosted me and yourself, Victor, at Mayenga FM. We had what now is trending in Kenya.
25th is a bit far. Hesbon was him a day or two.
Yeah, and on Friday night we were chatting and you were saying, when next are we doing this? And because I had seen something he posted on WhatsApp, and then little did we know that. So we pray for God's grace for all of us, even as we talk about 2026, that God's mercies will carry us through.
Thank you, gentlemen. I think that's not so good point to wrap up the show, but hey, we have to say thank you. Gentlemen, I have to say thank you so much. Thank you so much on behalf of the corporation. We've been doing this every year. Every time I call you, you're always, either you are busy somewhere, but you always promise that I'll be there. I have to say asante sana. Hesbon Omolo, council member, ISPAC, thank you so much for the good work you're doing out there. Asante sana, and we wish you all the best. Wish you all the best.
Somewhere.
We also associate, of course, educator, veteran unionist, asante sana. We still have I know what I'll do. And of course, Professor Emmanuel Mutisia, thank you so much for always being a part of the show. Asante sana. And Kevin Osido, Executive Director of County Governor's Watch. Brilliant brains on set every single morning. Waking up at 4 in the morning is not easy, but they have always been here. Let's take a break. When we come back, Good Morning Kenya continues after this. Stay with us. Good morning.